The envelope sat on my kitchen table for 3 days before I opened it. I knew the handwriting. I'd know it anywhere. Olivia always looped her E, like it was trying to escape the rest of the word. I finally tore it open on a Tuesday night, alone, with a cold cup of coffee next to me. You are cordially invited to celebrate the wedding of Olivia Bennett and Nathaniel Hastings. I read it 3 times before it actually landed. Nathaniel Hastings. The Tycoon. The man whose face was on business magazines I couldn't afford to buy. I laughed, but it wasn't really a laugh. It was more like the sound you make when something hits you in the chest, and you don't know what else to do. My phone buzzed. Marcus, you get it too? He asked the second I picked up. Get what? Don't play dumb, Ethan. The wedding invite. Olivia's marrying a literal billionaire. I got it. And I'm not going. Marcus went quiet for a second. That was never a good sign with him. Yes, you are. Marcus. No, listen to me. You've spent 2 years hiding in that apartment like she took something from you that you can't get back. She didn't. You gave it to her. Now go show up, shake the guy's hand, smile, and prove to everyone, including yourself, that you're fine. I am fine. Then prove it. I didn't answer right away, because the truth was I wasn't fine. Not even close. 2 years ago, Olivia and I were supposed to get married. I had the ring picked out. I had a whole speech planned. Then my architecture firm collapsed. 1 bad investment, 1 bad partner, and 5 years of work gone in a month. I remember sitting across from her, telling her we'd have to postpone the wedding, that I needed time to rebuild. She looked at me like I'd already left the room. I can't do this, Ethan, she'd said. I can't watch you lose everything and pretend it doesn't scare me. So you're leaving because I'm struggling? I'm leaving because I don't know who you are anymore. That was the last real conversation we had. After that, just silence. Then, 6 months later, I heard she was seeing someone new. Someone with money. Someone who wasn't me. Ethan. Marcus's voice pulled me back. You still there? Yeah. So you're coming? I stared at the invitation again. At her name next to his. Fine, I said. I'll go. Good man. Wear the navy suit. Not the gray one. The gray one makes you look like you're going to a funeral. Feels appropriate. Don't say that. The wedding venue looked like something out of a movie I'd never be able to afford to watch in theaters twice. White marble columns. Chandeliers the size of small cars. A fountain out front that probably cost more than my entire apartment building. I stood at the entrance for a full minute before I made myself walk in. Everyone around me was dressed like they'd stepped out of a magazine. Diamonds. Tailored suits that fit like they'd been painted on. I straightened my navy jacket and told myself I belonged here just as much as anyone. I didn't believe it. Not really. Sir, may I take your invitation? A man in a black uniform held out his hand. I gave it to him, and he nodded me through like I'd passed some kind of test. Inside, the ceremony hall was already filling up. Rows of white chairs. Flowers that probably flew in from another country that morning. I found a seat near the back, far enough that I could watch without being watched. Marcus texted me. You there yet? Yeah, I typed back. This place is insane. Told you. Billionaires don't do small weddings. I slid my phone into my pocket and looked up, and that's when I saw her. Olivia stood near the front, adjusting her veil in a small mirror someone was holding for her. The dress was white, long, expensive in a way that made my chest tighten. Her hair was pulled back the same way she used to wear it on our anniversaries. For a second, my mind tricked me into forgetting the last 2 years even happened. Then she turned, and she saw me. Her hand froze mid-motion, still holding the edge of her veil. Her eyes went wide, just for a second, like she'd seen a ghost she wasn't ready for. Something flickered across her face. Surprise. Maybe guilt. Maybe something else I couldn't name. I didn't move. I didn't smile. I just held her gaze, my heart pounding harder than I wanted to admit. For 2 years, I had wondered what it would feel like to see her again. Now I knew. It felt like standing at the edge of something I couldn't take back. Script remember write exact word count. The entire story must be written from the protagonist's perspective in first person, I, me, my format. Do not use third-person narration at any point. The reader should experience the protagonist's thoughts, emotions, and reactions directly. Dialogue must be the primary focus of the story, making up the majority of the content. Minimal but effective narration should be used to keep the story immersive without excessive descriptions. The story should have no unnecessary repetition. Every line should move the plot forward. How the prompt works. I will paste a chapter outline from prompt number 1. You will generate the full chapter in first-person POV. Word count must match the chapter outline exactly. The chapter should prioritize dialogue, 60 to 70%, with some narration, 20 to 30%, and minimal description, 10 to 15%. Avoid info dumping. Character actions, emotions, and backstory should be revealed naturally through dialogue. 1. Output format. First-person, dialogue-focused, exact word count per chapter. Input. Chapter 2. Stop chasing me. Almost equals 1,000 words. Olivia pulls Ethan aside before the ceremony, visibly nervous. In a tense, dialogue-heavy exchange, she coldly tells him to stop chasing her, and that he needs to accept she chose a better life. Ethan, stung, insists he came only to wish her well, but internally he admits part of him hoped she'd regret leaving. Richard Bennett, Olivia's father, interrupts coldly, reminding her of her place at this wedding. Introduces Richard. Ends with Ethan overhearing Richard threaten Olivia never to embarrass the family, hinting she isn't marrying for love. She crossed the room before I could look away. Ethan. Her voice was tight, controlled, like she'd rehearsed it in her head 100 times before saying it out loud. Can we talk? Now. I glanced around at the guests filing into their seats. Olivia, it's your wedding day. You don't have time. I'll make time. She grabbed my arm and pulled me toward a side hallway, away from the crowd, away from anyone who might overhear. Once we were alone, she let go of me like my skin burned her. Why are you here? She asked. I got an invitation. That's not what I asked. I know what you asked. I kept my voice level, even though my pulse wasn't cooperating. I came because I wanted to wish you well, Olivia. That's it. She crossed her arms. Is it? What's that supposed to mean? It means I know you, Ethan. I know how your mind works. You didn't come here for closure. You came here hoping I'd see you and feel something. The words hit harder than I expected, mostly because some part of me knew she wasn't wrong. That's not fair, I said. Isn't it? Her eyes softened for a second, just a flicker, before hardening again. Look, I need you to hear me. Stop chasing me. It's over. It's been over for 2 years. I'm not chasing you. You're standing in a hallway with me an hour before I walk down the aisle. What do you call that? You're the one who pulled me in here. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. For a second, she looked less like the composed woman in the expensive dress and more like the girl I used to know. The one who used to burn every pot of pasta she tried to make, who cried during dog food commercials, who used to fall asleep on my shoulder during long car rides. Then that girl disappeared again. I chose a better life, she said quietly. A stable one. A safe one. You have to accept that. Better, I repeated. Is that what this is? Better. Don't do that. Do what? Make it sound like I did something wrong by wanting security. You lost everything, Ethan. Your firm, your money, your confidence. I watched you fall apart, and I couldn't watch it happen to me too. My chest tightened. So you left because you were scared. I left because I had to survive. Neither of us said anything for a moment. The distant sound of a string quartet tuning their instruments drifted through the wall. I hope he makes you happy, I finally said. I mean that. Don't. Don't what? Wish you well. Don't say it like you're waiting for me to realize I made a mistake. Her voice cracked slightly on the last word. Because I didn't. Nathaniel is good to me. He's stable. He's everything you couldn't. Olivia. A new voice cut through the hallway, cold and sharp as a blade. I turned to see a tall man in a charcoal suit standing at the entrance, his expression unreadable, his eyes locked on Olivia like she was a problem that needed managing. Dad. Olivia straightened instantly, her whole posture changing. I don't care what you were just doing. Richard Bennett's voice didn't rise, but it didn't need to. There was a weight to it that made the air feel heavier. You have a ceremony starting in less than an hour, and I find you hiding in a hallway with your ex. He's a guest, Dad. I was saying hello. Richard's gaze shifted to me, and for a second I felt like I was being evaluated and dismissed at the same time. Mr. Cole, he said flatly. I remember you. The architect. Former architect, I said. Yes, I recall. He didn't offer a hand. Olivia inside. Now. She hesitated, glancing at me one last time. Something passed between us. I couldn't tell if it was an apology or a goodbye. I'll be right there, she told him. You'll come now. His tone left no room for argument. She walked past him without another word to me. I stayed where I was, unsure if I should leave, when I heard Richard's voice again. Lower this time, meant only for her, but the hallway carried sound further than he probably realized. Do not embarrass this family today, he said. Do you understand me? This wedding secures everything we've worked for. You will smile, you will say your vows, and you will not so much as look in that man's direction again. I understand, Olivia said, her voice suddenly small. This isn't about what you want anymore, Olivia. It never was. I stood frozen in the hallway, staring after them, a cold feeling settling in my stomach. Because that didn't sound like a father comforting his daughter on her wedding day. That sounded like a threat. I made my way back toward the main hall, still trying to shake off what I'd just heard. Richard's voice kept replaying in my head. This isn't about what you want anymore. It never was. I found a spot near the back again, away from the crowd, and tried to convince myself it wasn't my business anymore. Olivia had made her choice. Whatever was happening in her family, it wasn't mine to fix. Mr. Cole. The voice came from behind me, calm and even. I turned and found myself face to face with a man I only recognized from magazine covers. Nathaniel Hastings. He was taller than I expected, dressed in a black tuxedo that probably cost more than my car. But it wasn't his clothes that caught me off guard, it was his eyes. Sharp, focused, like he was reading me before I'd said a single word. Mr. Hastings, I said, extending my hand out of instinct more than anything else. Congratulations. He shook it firmly. Thank you for coming. I blinked. You know who I am? Of course I do. A faint smile crossed his face, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. I know exactly who you are, Mr. Cole. Something about the way he said it made the back of my neck go cold. It wasn't a threat, not exactly. But it wasn't casual either. I didn't expect the groom to know his fiancée's ex-boyfriend by name, I said carefully. I make it a point to know things. He gestured toward two empty chairs near the wall, away from the flow of guests. Do you have a moment? I hesitated. Every instinct told me to say no, to walk away, to avoid whatever this conversation was about to become. But curiosity, and maybe something else I didn't want to name, kept my feet planted. Sure, I said. We sat. He crossed one leg over the other, completely at ease, while I felt like I was sitting across from a judge waiting to deliver a verdict. You ran an architecture firm, he said. Cole and Associates. Small, but ambitious. Ran being the key word. I read about the Hartley Tower project. The one that fell through. He studied my face like he was watching for a reaction. The design was ahead of its time. Sustainable materials, the curved glass facade, the way you integrated green space into a vertical structure. That wasn't a small idea, Mr. Cole. That was innovative work. I stared at him, genuinely thrown. How do you know about that? That project barely made it past the blueprint stage. It never even got covered outside a few local papers. I read a lot, he said simply. And I remember what interests me. With respect, Mr. Hastings, I don't understand why my old architecture firm interests a man like you. Everything interests me if it's done well. He leaned forward slightly. Your firm collapsed because of a bad investment partner, not because of bad work. There's a difference. Most people don't understand that difference. I do. I didn't know what to say to that. Nobody had talked about my firm like that in 2 years. Not with respect, not with any acknowledgement that the failure wasn't entirely my fault. Even Olivia had looked at me like the collapse was proof of some deeper flaw in who I was. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Today of all days? Because timing matters. He glanced toward the front of the hall, where the officiant was arranging notes at the altar. And because I wanted to meet you before the ceremony, not after. I'm not sure what that means. You will. He stood, straightening his jacket, his expression unreadable again. I want you to know something, Mr. Cole. I don't do anything without a reason. Not this wedding. Not this conversation. Not seating you exactly where you're seated. A chill ran through me. You had me seated on purpose? Everything today has a purpose. He said it plainly, like he was stating a fact about the weather. Some of it, you'll understand soon. Some of it, not yet. That's not exactly reassuring. For the first time, something flickered across his face. Not quite a smile, but close. It's not meant to be reassuring. It's meant to be honest. I stood too, unsure what else to do with my hands, my thoughts scattering in a dozen directions. Mr. Hastings, if there's something going on here that involves me, I think I deserve to know what it is. You will, he repeated. Soon. He turned to leave, then paused. glancing back at me over his shoulder. The noise of the hall seemed to fade for a second. The string quartet, the murmur of guests, all of it distant compared to the weight of his next words. "Watch the ceremony closely, Mr. Cole," he said. "Not everything here is what it looks like." Then he walked away, disappearing into the crowd of guests near the front, leaving me standing there with my pulse hammering and 100 questions I had no answers to. I sat back down slowly, my mind racing. What did he mean? Not everything here is what it looks like. Did he know about Richard's threats in the hallway? Did he know Olivia didn't want this wedding at all? Or was there something else entirely, something I hadn't even considered? The music shifted. The doors at the back of the hall opened. The ceremony was about to begin. And whatever Nathaniel Hastings was planning, I had a front row seat to watch it unfold. The doors opened, and Olivia walked in on her father's arm. She looked beautiful. She always did. But as she moved down the aisle, her eyes weren't soft the way a bride's eyes are supposed to be. They were fixed straight ahead, almost too focused, like she was concentrating on not looking anywhere else. Like she was concentrating on not looking at me. "She's stunning," the woman next to me whispered, more to herself than to me. I glanced over. Mid-30s, dark hair pinned back simply compared to the diamonds surrounding us, wearing a plain green dress that stood out precisely because it wasn't trying to compete with anyone. "You know her?" I asked quietly. "No. I work with the groom." She kept her eyes on the aisle. "You?" "I used to know the bride." She glanced at me then, quick and assessing, but didn't push further. "I'm Sophie." "Ethan." The ceremony began before either of us could say more. The officiant spoke about love, commitment, the joining of two lives. I barely heard any of it. I was watching Olivia's hands, how they trembled slightly as she held Nathaniel's. When it came time for vows, Nathaniel went first. His words were smooth, practiced, confident. He talked about partnership, about respect, about building something lasting. It sounded rehearsed, but not insincere, like a man reciting a contract he fully intended to honor. Then it was Olivia's turn. "Nathaniel," she stopped. "Started again. I promise to stand beside you. To support you in everything, and to." She trailed off. The silence stretched a beat too long. A ripple of confusion moved through the crowd, quiet murmurs, a few guests exchanging glances. "Take your time," Nathaniel said gently, his voice carrying just enough for the front rows to hear. Olivia pressed her lips together, blinking fast. "I promise to be everything you need," she finally said. "I promise." It wasn't the vow she'd started. It wasn't even close. Beside me, Sophie leaned in slightly. "That wasn't nerves," she murmured. "What do you mean? I've been to a lot of weddings like this. Money weddings." She kept her eyes forward, her voice barely above a breath. "Nerves make you shaky." That wasn't shaky. That was someone trying not to say something true. I didn't answer, but something in my chest tightened, because she'd put into words exactly what I'd been feeling since Olivia stumbled. "Money can't fake real feelings," Sophie added quietly, "no matter how good the dress looks." I looked at her, surprised by how directly she'd said it, how easily she'd read the entire room in one glance. "You always this observant at strangers' weddings?" I asked. "Only the ones that feel like business deals dressed up in white lace." Before I could respond, movement near the second row caught my eye. Richard Bennett leaned toward an older man in a navy suit, speaking low and fast. "The merger paperwork will be finalized by Monday," Richard was saying, his voice pitched just low enough to seem private, though I was close enough to catch it. "This wedding secures the partnership. Hastings Group gets access to our shipping contracts. We get their capital. Everyone wins." The older man nodded stiffly. "As long as it's finalized before the board meeting. It will be. My daughter understands what's at stake." I felt sick. This wasn't a wedding. It was a transaction with a bride attached to it. "You heard that too?" Sophie whispered. "Yeah. Doesn't exactly sound like true love, does it?" Before I could respond, the officiant cleared his throat, moving toward the exchange of rings. Nathaniel took Olivia's hand again, but this time, he didn't reach for the ring. He went still. "Nathaniel," Olivia whispered, confusion flickering across her face. He didn't answer right away. His eyes moved slowly across the crowd, past Richard, past the business partners, past me, before settling back on Olivia. "I need to speak with you," he said. "Privately." "Now." A wave of stunned silence rolled through the hall. The officiant froze mid-sentence. Guests exchanged wide-eyed glances. Richard's face went pale, then hard, his jaw tightening like he already knew something was about to go very wrong. Nathaniel, this is highly unusual, the officiant started. I'm aware. Nathaniel's voice remained calm, but there was an edge to it now, something deliberate and unshakable. Olivia, please. Olivia's hands were trembling openly now. Now? In front of everyone. Now, he said, gentler this time, but no less firm. The entire venue held its breath. Beside me, Sophie whispered, I don't think this wedding is ending the way anyone in this room expected. I couldn't have agreed more. Nathaniel didn't move toward a side room. He stayed right there, in front of everyone, and turned to face the crowd instead. I think it's time for some honesty, he said. Nathaniel, please. Olivia's voice cracked. Not here. Especially here. His tone was calm, but there was steel underneath it. Richard, would you like to explain to your daughter's guests what this wedding is actually securing? Or should I? The color drained from Richard's face. This isn't the place for business talk. No, Nathaniel agreed. It's the place for truth. He turned back to the crowd, his voice carrying easily across the silent hall. 3 months ago, I learned that Richard Bennett arranged this marriage to save his failing shipping company, my family's capital in exchange for his daughter. He told Olivia that if she didn't go through with it, her mother's medical debts would bankrupt them completely. Gasps rippled through the guests. Someone dropped a champagne glass near the back, the sound sharp against the stunned silence. That's a lie, Richard snapped, but his voice wavered. Is it? Nathaniel pulled a folded paper from his jacket pocket. Because I have the loan documents. Your signature. The deadline that conveniently lines up with today's date. Richard said nothing. His silence was answer enough. Olivia stood frozen, tears streaming down her face now, her carefully done makeup smudging beneath her eyes. Dad, is that true? Olivia, I did what I had to do for this family, Richard said, his voice suddenly desperate. For you. For your mother. You sold me, she whispered. I saved us. You didn't ask me. Her voice broke into something raw, something real for the first time all day. You never asked me what I wanted. You just told me who to marry, and I was too scared to say no. The hall was completely silent now, every guest frozen, watching a family fall apart in real time. Nathaniel turned to Olivia, his expression softening slightly. I'm not going to marry someone who was forced into loving me. I deserve better than that. And so do you. Nathaniel, do you love him? Nathaniel asked, nodding toward me. My heart stopped. Olivia's eyes met mine across the hall, wide with shock, tears still falling. What? I've known for weeks, Nathaniel said quietly. The way you talk about him when you think no one's listening. The way you flinched every time I mentioned wedding planning. I'm not blind, Olivia. I just needed to know if you'd ever admit it. I never stopped loving him, Olivia whispered, the words barely audible, but somehow filling the entire room. I left because I was terrified. I watched my mother suffer, watched my father lose everything once before, and when Ethan's firm collapsed, I panicked. I thought if I stayed, I'd lose everything all over again. I stood there, stunned, unable to speak, my chest tight with something between vindication and heartbreak. I'm sorry, Olivia said, looking at me now. For all of it. I didn't know what to say. 2 years of wondering. And here it was, laid bare in front of 200 strangers. Nathaniel straightened his jacket, turning to address the crowd one final time. This wedding is over. I wish the Bennett family well in sorting out their finances without my family's money. Richard opened his mouth to protest, but the murmurs among the business partners had already started, quiet, urgent conversations, several guests already reaching for their phones. His reputation was unraveling in real time, right there in front of him. Nathaniel walked toward me, ignoring the chaos behind him entirely. Mr. Cole, he said, walk with me. Confused, still reeling, I followed him toward the edge of the hall, away from the wreckage of the ceremony. You planned this, I said. All of it. I planned the exposure. I didn't plan the outcome for you and Olivia. That part's between you two. He stopped near the entrance, studying me carefully. But I'll be honest, Mr. Cole. Learning about Richard's manipulation wasn't the only reason I looked into your background. What do you mean? I told you I read about your firm. The Hartley Tower design. That wasn't just idle curiosity. He held my gaze steadily. I've been looking for someone honest to run a new development division at Hastings Group. Someone who builds things the right way, even when it costs them. Someone who doesn't fold under pressure, even when everything falls apart. I stared at him, certain I'd misheard. You're offering me a job. I'm offering you a partnership, he corrected. Equity. Full creative control over the architecture division. I think you're wasted where you are, and I think today proved I'm not wrong about people when I study them closely. I opened my mouth, then closed it again, completely blindsided. Take some time, Nathaniel said, extending a card toward me. Think it over. But Mr. Cole, don't let today's chaos make you forget what I'm actually offering you. I took the card, my hand unsteady, my mind still spinning from everything that had just unfolded. Behind us, the hall was still in chaos, Richard shouting at his business partners, Olivia standing alone in her wedding dress, guests whispering behind their hands. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, my entire life had just changed direction. By the time I got home, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. News of the wedding had already spread. Someone had filmed the whole thing, and the video was everywhere. Richard's face going pale, Olivia's confession, Nathaniel walking away from 200 guests like it was nothing. Marcus called before I even got my shoes off. Dude. His voice was somewhere between shock and disbelief. Are you seeing this? It's everywhere. I was there, Marcus. Right, obviously, but wait, is that true? Olivia said she never stopped loving you? In front of everyone. Yeah. So what happens now? Are you too? I don't know. You don't know? He sounded personally offended. Ethan, the woman just publicly humiliated her father and admitted her feelings in front of a room full of billionaires. What's there to think about? I sat down on my couch, rubbing my eyes. A lot, actually. 2 days later, Olivia showed up at my apartment. She looked different without the wedding dress, smaller somehow, tired, dark circles under her eyes that no amount of makeup could hide. Can we talk? She asked. I let her in, mostly out of habit. My father's company is falling apart, she said, sitting stiffly on the edge of my couch. 3 of his biggest partners pulled out yesterday. The scandals everywhere. I saw. I wanted to apologize properly, not in front of a crowd. She twisted her hands together. I meant what I said, Ethan. I never stopped loving you. I was just so scared of ending up like my parents, drowning in debt, watching everything fall apart. When your firm collapsed, it triggered something in me. I panicked, and I ran, and I've regretted it every day since. I let the words settle before I answered. I believe you. Her eyes lit up slightly. You do? I do. But believing you doesn't change how I feel now. What do you mean? I spent 2 years thinking that if you just came back, everything would make sense again. That I'd feel whole. I shook my head slowly. But sitting here, listening to you apologize, I don't feel what I thought I'd feel. Ethan, I'm not angry anymore, Olivia. I'm not even sad. I think I'm just done. Not done with you as a person. Done needing you to fix what broke in me. She stared at me for a long moment, tears welling up again. So that's it. After everything, I think we needed different things. You needed safety. I needed to rebuild myself without waiting for someone else to hand me permission to feel okay again. She left 20 minutes later, quieter than when she arrived. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt strangely calm, like a weight I'd been carrying for 2 years had finally set itself down. Sophie called that evening. How'd it go, she asked. Better than I expected. Worse than I hoped, somehow. I don't know. Sounds about right for closure. I could hear the small smile in her voice. For what it's worth, I think you handled it well. You barely know me. I know enough. I watched you sit through that entire disaster of a wedding with more grace than most of the people involved. I smiled despite myself. Careful, Sophie. That almost sounded like a compliment. Don't get used to it. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet of my apartment, thinking about my sister Grace. How her medical bills had drained the last of my firm's reserves right before everything collapsed. How I'd never blamed her for it. Not once. But how the guilt of not being able to protect both her and my company had eaten at me every single day since. I thought about James Whitfield, my old mentor, who used to tell me that talent without confidence was just wasted potential sitting in a drawer. I realized, sitting there, that losing Olivia had never been the real wound. The real wound was losing belief in myself, in my work, in the idea that I could build something and have it actually last. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Ethan Cole. The voice was familiar, gravelly, warm. James. It's been a while, kid. I could hear him smiling through the phone. I heard about the wedding. Whole city's talking about it. Yeah, it's been a week. I also heard Nathaniel Hastings offered you a partnership. I sat up straighter. How do you know that? Because he called me first, before he ever spoke to you. Wanted to know if I thought you were worth the investment. James chuckled. Told him you were worth 10 times whatever he was offering. My throat tightened unexpectedly. James, don't get sentimental on me now. Listen, kid, Hastings' investment is real, and it's substantial. Enough to rebuild the firm properly this time. Foundation up. And he wants me consulting alongside you. If you're willing, you'd come back? I never really left, Ethan. I just needed you to be ready. His voice softened. Are you ready? I looked around my apartment, small, quiet, filled with 2 years of avoiding the one thing I used to love most. Yeah, I said, and for the first time in a long time, I actually meant it. I'm ready. 6 months changes more than people expect. I stood in the middle of my new office, watching workers hang the final sign outside the glass doors, Cole and Whitfield architecture, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Steady. You're staring at that sign like it's going to disappear, James said, walking up beside me with 2 cups of coffee. Just making sure it's real. It's real, kid. You built this. Nathaniel's money got us the foundation, but the designs, the contracts, the reputation we're rebuilding, that's all you. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. Olivia's name flashed across the screen. I stepped outside to take it. Hey, she said, her voice careful. I saw the announcement about your firm. Congratulations. Thanks. I was wondering if, maybe we could get coffee sometime. Talk. Now that things have settled down. I paused, giving the question the weight it deserved instead of rushing past it. Olivia, I don't think that's a good idea. Ethan, I know things ended complicated, but I still think about what we could. I know, I said gently. And I'm not saying that to hurt you. I just think we both needed that ending to happen the way it did. I've moved forward. I'd like you to be able to do the same. Silence stretched on the line. So this is really it, she finally said. It's really it. I wish you well, Olivia. I mean that. I believe you, she said quietly. Take care of yourself, Ethan. You too. I hung up, and for the first time, saying goodbye to her didn't feel like losing anything. It felt like closing a door gently instead of slamming it. That looked heavy, Sophie said, appearing in the doorway with a small paper bag in her hand. Olivia, I said, wanted to get coffee. Talk about getting back together. Sophie's eyebrows lifted. And I told her no. How do you feel? I thought about it honestly before answering. Lighter. Like I finally put something down that I'd been carrying way too long. She smiled, handing me the bag. Brought you lunch. Figured opening day would be chaotic. You didn't have to do that. I know. I wanted to. She leaned against the doorframe, studying me. That's the difference, Ethan. Wanting to do something for someone instead of feeling like you have to. I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized how different this felt from everything with Olivia. There was no desperation here, no fear of losing something. Just steady, quiet trust building day by day. Have dinner with me tonight, I said. Not because the day's been chaotic, just because I want to. Her smile widened. I'd like that. The moment was interrupted by a voice I hadn't heard in months. Sharp, familiar, and considerably less confident than it used to be. Ethan Cole. I turned to find Richard Bennett standing near the entrance, his suit slightly less polished than I remembered, his expression tight, with something between desperation and pride. Richard, I said evenly. I need to speak with you. He glanced at Sophie, then back at me. Alone, preferably. Anything you want to say, you can say here. His jaw tightened. My company's in ruins. Do you have any idea what that scandal cost me? Partners pulled out. Investors fled. I lost almost everything. I'm aware. You could help me. A word to Hastings, an introduction to your new investors. It wouldn't cost you anything. I studied him for a long moment, searching for anger, for the satisfaction I once thought I'd feel watching him fall. It wasn't there. Just a quiet, settled clarity. Richard, I'm not going to help you rebuild something you destroyed with your own choices. After everything, you're really going to stand there and refuse me? I could have made things difficult for you once. I could have, but you didn't, I said calmly. And now you're standing outside my firm asking for help. That should tell you something about how things turned out. This isn't over, Cole. It is, actually. I kept my voice steady, no anger, no triumph, just fact. Your daughter told the truth. Your business partners saw who you really are. That's not something I did to you, Richard. That's something you did to yourself. He stood there for a long moment, searching for something to say, finding nothing. Then he turned and walked away, his shoulders less straight than I remembered them being. Sophie stepped up beside me as he disappeared down the street. That was surprisingly graceful of you. I didn't need revenge, I said, watching Richard's retreating figure. Karma already did the work. She slipped her hand into mine, and we stood there together, looking up at the sign above the entrance. My name, James's name, a firm built on honesty instead of fear. I thought about the wedding, the hallway confrontation, Nathaniel's calm certainty that not everything was what it looked like. I thought about Olivia's tears, Richard's threats, the slow unraveling of a life built on control. And I understood something I hadn't understood 2 years ago, standing in that hallway watching her walk away from me. I never needed to chase anyone to prove I was worth staying for. I just needed to stop waiting for someone else's permission to rise.